Welcome to the party. I'm Sam Ekstrom of Locked On Sports Minnesota. We put a bow on Timberwolves free agency today on the Minnesota Basketball Party.
This is Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast. It's endless Minnesota Timberwolves talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. It's time for the Minnesota Basketball Party on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Wolves talk every Wednesday here on Locked On Sports Minnesota. It's the Minnesota Basketball Party on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On Wolves with Ben Beacon, who's absent today, but he produces great daily Wolves content wherever you get your podcasts. Please subscribe to us on YouTube. The Locked On Sports Minnesota channel produces lots of great content every single day of the week. Plenty to get to on this 10th day of July. The Timberwolves seem to have wrapped up their free agency dealings. They do not retain any of their in-house free agents. They bring in Joe Ingles. They bring in PJ Dozier. The Summer League is coming up, and the Olympics are coming up, and Anthony Edwards is headlining that in many ways. But first, we tell you that today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Once again, I'm Sam Ekstrom, executive producer here at Locked On Sports Minnesota. I'm at Sam Ekstrom on X. Let's meet the rest of our panel today with the opening tip.
I'm Jack Borman, co-host of the Locked On Wolves postcast with my man Luke Inman, former editor-in-chief at Canis Hoopus. And right on that, Sam, I'm going to be talking a little bit about why I believe Anthony Edwards' confidence in himself is completely justified as we inch towards the Paris games and kick off the exhibition season tonight.
And I'm Ron Johnson, former Gophers wide receiver, Gophers Hall of Famer, NFL wide receiver, host of the Ron Johnson Show on Locked On Sports Minnesota. And I am going to talk to you guys about, I'm a big Marvel Comics, DC movie guy. I just watched The Flash. I finally got to watch. I haven't watched Aquaman 2 yet, but I'm going to talk about why The Flash ended up in the Speed Force. And he's going to change the history of Minnesota. You're going to forget about Shlomo, and you're only going to know about Joe Ingles.
And I'm Andrew Dukowitz, beat reporter for Zone Coverage, first year being credentialed with the Wolves. And I'm going to tell you why Rob Dillingham may not be the best rookie on the Wolves.
Ooh. It's good to have Andrew Dukowitz here. We don't have Reggie Wilson. We don't have Ben Beacon. Andrew filled in admirably on our postcast a few times, works with Zone Coverage, zonecoverage.com, and he's going to the Summer League as well. So I think we'll get him on again next week to talk about what he saw at Wolves Summer League, which begins here in short order. But we jump right into it. It looks like free agency is winding down for the Minnesota Timberwolves, unless there's a big splashy move to come. Maybe that crazy Lowry marketing scenario that Jack Borman laid out last week. But barring that, it seems like the Wolves are pretty settled. They do not retain Kyle Anderson, Monty Morris. We knew that last week. Jordan McLaughlin, the final domino to fall. He departs to Sacramento with an emotional goodbye video on Twitter. I think I had tears in my eyes. The Wolves have brought in Joe Ingles, as multiple of you predicted last week. They bring in PJ Dozier as well. Joe Ingles probably the one that'll be part of the rotation next year. So we kick it to Jack Borman, who was on the Joe Ingles bandwagon. What's your take on the way things have settled now for the Wolves in free agency?
Yeah, last week, well, Sam too. I want to say I think we could maybe not be done with some player movement and some stuff with the Wolves down the line, but that's a conversation for another time potentially.
What do you know? What do you know?
And, with Joe Ingles. Joe Ingles said last week that I think with the roster, they're really only going to be able to choose between 2 of 4 skills, between defensive versatility, playmaking, shooting, and athleticism. The Wolves chose shooting and playmaking with Joe Ingles, and they're probably hoping that Terrence Shannon Jr. potentially could give them some of that defensive versatility and athleticism. He's 6'5", 220, has a 6'8" wingspan. But with Ingles, primarily a shooter and a pick and roll partner for Gobert. He shot 43% on nearly 173s last season, was in the 99th percentile in terms of his efficiency and catch and shoot situations. And he had a 3.2 assist to turnover ratio, right? One thing we loved about Kyle Anderson was that he was able to, to be a productive playmaker without turning the ball over. That's certainly the case for Ingles. He had 215 assists and 67 turnovers last season in Orlando. And obviously the chemistry with Mike Conley and Rudy Gobert is huge, in that, he's someone who's very comfortable throwing lobs to Rudy Gobert. I think that's something that the Timberwolves can never have enough of, and obviously understands the way that Mike Conley likes to play and where to position himself, off the ball when Conley and Gobert are doing their thing in pick and roll. A couple of down things about Ingles. He's not as athletic as he once used to be. I don't think he's going to be, much of an impact defender in the same way that Slow-Mo was. I don't know how well you're going to be able to put him on some of the bigger, more physical perimeter players that we saw Slow-Mo defend. He only shot 46% at the rim last year. He didn't take very many shots at the rim. It's a small sample size, but it's still not a great number. And he really didn't shoot the ball very well out of pick and roll. And he only shot 36% when he took shots after receiving a screen in pick and roll. And so that's something that you certainly would hope would improve with one of the best screen setters to ever do it, and Rudy Gobert with him. So I'm a fan of Joe Ingles. I think that what he's going to bring to the team is nice. And we're gonna circle back to Dozier after. You want that now?
Let's circle back, because I want to get Ron on Ingles, because Ron, you were breaking down Ingles tape. You were sending us Ingles clip. So you like this guy.
Yeah, so when on the show before they even signed him, that was one of the names I threw out there. And this is why I'm a hooper. Like, as a football player, yeah, I know I play professional football, but everybody knows professional wide receivers in the NFL are usually your best hoopers on your team. Just check with the Minnesota Vikings and Justin Jefferson. Ignore Adam Thielen, because he's not a hooper, but he does like to play basketball. But when you are a hooper and you play with guys all the time, there's one thing that I love, and it's a lefty shooter. Why? Because they are awkward. When I say that, we're all right-handed. So our thought to defend with our left is to run at their shooting hand. We grew up being taught hand up, one hand down, because of lefties and righties. Like, that's just, everybody's a righty. So coaches always taught, put that left hand up, the right hand down to stop the crossover. Most guys, I'm not saying the pros, they know he's a lefty, so they're going to run at the left. But it still throws people off how quick he gets his shot up. And I love the way he gets the shot up quick. Again, it's the opposite of Slow-Mo when it comes to getting the shot off. Not the athleticism, not the defensive side of it, because I did end up having to praise Slow-Mo. Sam, you were right. Mm-hmm. He did a great job against the Nuggets. But I want scores. Give me some scores, because I agree with Jack on that. I think Terrence Shannon Jr., I think he's going to be able to add some of that defensive prowess that they might be looking for. Again, when you look at that size, 6'5", 220, you can put him in that Slow-Mo role to say, come in and deal with like a Klay Thompson. Come in and deal with a Kevin Durant, for a couple series. Like, I think they'll get that out of Terrence Shannon Jr. But I like Joe Ingles if he's on the floor with Anthony Edwards, Mike Conley, Karl Anthony Towns, and Gobert. Or if you take Gobert and put Naz Reid and Joe Ingles on the wings or in the corners, you now add two quick shooters with the trigger, and you have Cat. So now you just added an additional big with Jaden McDaniels. That's why I don't think, free agency, if something happens, something happens. But look at where this team was. I feel like they were one score away from being able to be in the game with the Mavs. They were never in these games, but I think one score would have helped Anthony Edwards maybe not have to feel like he had to exhaust all of his energy.
Andrew Dukowitz, can we call you the Duke? Is that okay?
That's fine. It's
the
what
Duke
I was
of
called
Earl.
in high school. It's fine.
Duke of Earl.
Duke
of Vegas.
There we go.
Tell people that. When you meet people that say, I'm the Duke of Vegas.
I just want to piggyback off of what Jack was saying. It's just the shooting, I think, is the most important part with Joe Ingles. 91% of his 3-point shots came off of assists. 41% of his total threes came as wide open, no defender within 6 feet. And he hit those at 54%. For reference, I think Kyle was about 18% on open catch and shoot threes.
Yeah.
That upgrade, when you're picturing Kyle Anderson in the corner getting a wide open three and having that hit shot versus Joe Ingles just being able to let it go, I think is going to put an added level of kind of fear in the defense. His playmaking is something he's had his entire career. With Utah, Kyle Anderson even said, to get comfortable with Rudy, he was watching Joe Ingles film to try and get that lob pass and those pocket passes down. I think Joe Ingles, even at this stage in his career, is going to be definitely addition to this team. That being said, the defense is tough. I was watching quite a few clips of Joe Ingles for a Joe Ingles piece I did, and his on-ball defense, he's just not quick enough to cover guards anymore. And his post defense, he's just not smooth enough to stay in front of people. He's going to have to be someone that you hide at this point in his career. That being said, we're talking about a guy that's going to play like 15 to 18 minutes a game at best. And I think the shooting and playmaking, when you can surround him with Jaden, Nikhil, Naz Reid, Rudy, I think it's a very big upgrade for the rotation in general.
Yeah, the shooting's good enough that you're willing to sacrifice some other stuff. And let me kick it back to Jack, and you can toss in some PJ Dozier analysis here if you want, but let's just look at the tail of the tape. You subtract Slow-Mo, Morris, McLaughlin. You add Ingles, Dozier, Dillingham, Shannon. So with that being the case, and Jack, it sounds like you think they might make more moves. If that's the end game, did the Wolves get better this offseason?
No question. I think they addressed their biggest issue, which was that they didn't have enough on-ball creation and guys that can put the ball on the deck and go get their own bucket. They got a big-time hooper for our guy Ron and Rob Dillingham, who not only is going to be their point guard of the future, but is going to be a guy that has a really scalable role that fits his game right away and being able to be another microwave scorer off the bench, which is huge. So I think just by acquiring Rob Dillingham and getting two guys on rookie scale contracts is no question a win in the aggregate for the Timberwolves. And then another nice thing about what they did with going out and getting PJ Dozier is hopefully they can get some of that defensive versatility that they lost with Kyle Anderson, and that he's 6'6", 205 pounds. He can switch 1 through 3. He's got some good P&R chops on the ball. He's really long and moves really fluidly from side to side. And he's familiar with Tim Connolly, right? So he played for Connolly in Denver. He signed a training camp contract with the Wolves in 2022, dominated for the Iowa Wolves, and played last year in Serbia with Frank Kaminsky out there in Serbia. It was the same team that Dante Exum played for before he had his NBA revival with the Mavericks. Averaged 9 points, 29.4% from three. 3 rebounds, 3 assists, and a stock and a half in EuroLeague play. Not really going to set the world on fire with those numbers, but again, he's much more of a role player at this point, a guy that's going to come in and primarily be a defensive guy. So, you'd certainly like to see him improve on him shooting 33.7% on catch and shoot threes, but again, it's a defensive option on nights where maybe you don't have Nickeil Alexander-Walker, or maybe you don't trust Jalen Clark quite enough, and you want a guy that's got a lot of NBA experience in PJ Dozier. So yeah, I think overall you're looking at a pretty darn good offseason for the Timberwolves considering the circumstances. It's not going to be perfect, but I think when you're dealing with such limited mechanisms that you have to be able to improve the roster, I think what Tim Connolly and his staff did was pretty commendable.
Yeah. Ron, quickly, do you think the Wolves got better as Jack does?
I think so. Again, when I talked about Terrence Shannon Jr., Rob Dillingham, and just last year's team, like look at the guys they let go. Nothing against. I think Shlomo was the one. It's like maybe it could have been nice to keep him because of his defensive versatility and the guys he can guard. Offensively, you get more with Joe Ingles, but I think Jordan McLaughlin and Monty Morris, the 2 rookies, are an upgrade. So yes, I think they got better.
Duke?
Yeah, I'm right in lockstep with them. I think if anything, we learned that Tim Connolly is a phenomenal GM as well. That draft day trade to get the extra assets. I mean, they wouldn't have been able to get anyone close to Dillingham and frankly, probably not even Shannon in a veteran minimum market. So setting themselves up for the future, learning that Tim Connolly is that guy that is going to be able to guide this team, hopefully for the foreseeable future, and then upgrading at pretty much everything they really needed. I mean, they don't really need more scorers off the bench with Joe Ingles being able to hit threes, Dillingham, Ant, Cat. They just need a guy that if there's a lot of injuries, he can go in and play his role. And it sounds like PJ Dozier can do that at this point in his career.
Let's talk about that bench rotation when we return. How do they divvy up the pie chart of bench minutes? We'll discuss what that rotation looks like next on the Minnesota Basketball Party. We're presented today by Game Time, an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer you get to first pitch. And the Minnesota Twins have been playing really good baseball lately. They'll be back at home after the All-Star break, and they're creeping in on the first place Cleveland Guardians. So make sure you get in the building at Target Field and find some great deals. Maybe it's a zone deal where you choose a section, Game Time chooses the seats. Exclusive in-app deals are the flash deals with Game Time on select seats ahead of games or events. And it's not just sports, it's concerts, comedy, theater, and more. There's great customer service, the lowest price guarantee, and their ticket is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, Minnesota basketball party moving right along. We're talking Wolves bench, and then we'll get into Team USA, Anthony Edwards comments, and a little summer league preview with the Duke, who's headed out to Vegas. But this bench that we've been discussing, there's only so many bites you can take out of the apple. You've got Nas, sixth man of the year. You've got Nikhil, and now you've got Ingles. So are you going to go much deeper than that in the regular season, maybe on occasion? But Ron, we'll start with you. Like, who do you think is going to be able to crack this bench rotation of these rookies? I mean, you've got Dillingham, obviously, Shannon, and then Jalen Clark coming off an injury, who the team apparently really likes. How do you think that bench is going to look next year?
I think you kind of hit it. I think, the guys we've seen, Joe Ingles, Nikhil Alexander-Walker, I think like cracking the lineup a lot is going to be the two drafted guys, Terrence Shannon and what's his name, Rob Dillingham.
Yeah.
And just because of what we saw last year, I think the minutes. I mean, unless somebody and maybe the Duke can tell us what he sees down at Summer League, but unless somebody really just goes off in Summer League, I don't see it, because when you draft a guy in the first round, it's not a guarantee we have to play him. But the 8th pick, you usually want to see what you have in him at least. And another first rounder, you probably get him in the rotation and get some work in. I think that's about it, because Joe Ingles deserves. I mean, Nas Reed, Joe Ingles, Naw, and Jaden McDaniels. That's a lot. And then you still have Mike Conley, Anthony Edwards, Karl-Anthony Towns, and Rudy Gobert. That's 8 right there. So I think those rookies are going to have to fight for minutes. I think Rob Dillingham probably gets way more than Terrence Shannon, just early on my initial thoughts, because Anthony Edwards is a beast. I mean, in hockey terms, he's a guy that can skate probably over 90 seconds. He's a true, I'm going to grit this out, I can play. But I do hope that they use Terrence Shannon Jr. if he is usable in that situation. So Anthony Edwards, when we're in the Western Conference Finals again, he's not gas. But no, I think those 8 are it. And then you're going to see some Rob Dillingham as that 9th player.
Yeah, I mean, Duke, there's going to be good players when the team's healthy, that is. There are going to be good players on the bench that are not playing simply because it's a numbers game, right? You're not going to play 10 every single night. But who do you see cracking this rotation this year?
This isn't a shade at Luke Ridnar, but there isn't going to be a Luke Ridnar type player getting minutes on this team. I mean, the bench of this team could have been starters 7 or 8 years ago. I think Ron said it perfectly. I mean, Nikhil and Reed are probably going to get their 20 minutes or so. Dillingham's probably going to get close to 15, 20 minutes. And then you have Ingles, Shannon, Clark, Miller, and Minot that are all going to be trying to figure out which 1 or 2 of them can split the last 15. I do think that Chris Finch early in seasons has shown that he's willing to go to 9, 10-man rotations to try and figure out what he has. So we might see quite a bit more earlier in the season. I also get the vibe that the team really wants to lessen minutes on Mike Conley, Rudy Gobert. I mean, to some extent, Ant, I think he would play 45 minutes a night if they'd let him, but they'd probably like to see him closer to that 38 mark. So there might be more minutes available this season as opposed to last season. But I really think Nikhil, Nas Reed, Dillingham, you can pretty much pen in the lineup at this point. And then it's really going to be Ingles, Shannon, Clark, Miller, Minot all battling for those last 15, which when you have Joe Ingles and a first-round draft pick battling for 15 minutes, you're doing something right.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody's wondering why they traded Wendell Moore, this is why. There's not going to be room for Leonard Miller. Jack, what do you think?
Yeah, I think you're going to get Nas and Nikhil playing really substantial minutes like they did this past season. I think, and maybe with his minutes might be a little bit more matchup dependent. If you need a bigger, if you're playing against a bigger team, maybe you see a little bit more Joe Ingles than Nikhil. But I think those two guys are pretty set in stone as the seventh and eighth, or the sixth and seventh guys in whatever order you want them. I think Rob Dillingham is locked into that eighth spot in the rotation. Like Chris Finch is going to use a 9-man rotation. He used a 9-man rotation for pretty much the entire regular season. He even went to 10 at some points when Jordan McLaughlin was playing really well. So I think you get those four locked into the rotation, I think, on night one. And then, depending on foul trouble, depending on, what part of the season it's in, if guys are tired, you feel like you need to go to 10. The Timberwolves certainly have the talent to be able to go to a 10-man rotation. Then I think you start just seeing, who's playing the best in practice, who's making the most of their minutes at the end of the game when the game's already been decided, whether that's, Terrence Shannon Jr., whether that's PJ Dozier, Jalen Clark, or whether that's Josh Minot or Leonard Miller. I think when you look back at, some of the guys that the Timberwolves have drafted in recent years, like none of them have really played. Between Walker Kessler, before he got a chance to play, was traded in the Rudy Gobert deal. And then you have Wendell Moore Jr., who had that one start against John Morant, did a great job, but didn't really play much outside of that. And then Josh Minot, Leonard Miller haven't played at all. And Jalen Clark obviously hasn't played at all because he's been hurt. So there's not really a lot of precedent for the Timberwolves, playing these young guys, at least in the last few years. But I think then, when you're looking at who's going to play with who, I think you have to structure it in terms of who's going to play the best or who's going to fit the best with each big, right? Because that's kind of how they structure. It's kind of a bifurcate rotation in that way. I think with Rudy, you'll probably see Nas and Joe Ingles play with Rudy, and Rob Dillingham play a lot with Rudy as well as a pick and roll partner, kind of get him on the same wavelength, throwing lobs, utilizing more of his pick and roll scoring off the bounce in the mid range. And then I think with Carl, you're going to insulate him with more defensive guys. I think you're going to see Nikhil play a ton of minutes with Carl, and I think you're going to see Jaden McDaniels play a huge chunk of his minutes with Karl Anthony Towns. Last season, Jaden was a plus 8.4 with Cat on the floor. He was a minus 1.1 with Cat off the floor. So those two guys have a really good connection together, and Jaden's play really bounced back once Carl returned from injury. So I think you're going to see that. And I think, if you with Carl, you can have Nas out there for defensive purposes. Like we saw last year, he was tremendous defensively. And then if you want more standard spacing in second side creation, I think you could go with Joe Ingles with Cat. But the nice thing is, like, all these guys are going to play together. It's a long season. Hopefully they're as healthy as they were last year, where you're able to get a ton of minutes with both guys. So.
And Jack, before we move on to Team USA, I got to extract something from you. You seem to think that they're going to add to this roster. I think they do have a roster spot open. So what does your instinct tell you in that regard?
I don't know. I think they'll try to leave a roster spot open so that they can convert Jalen Clark from a two-way contract to a regular contract once we get into the regular season, probably around that February time, what they did with Luka Garza, just because it's a cheaper way to avoid having that having that incomplete roster charge hit the books at the end of the season. So we'll see. Who knows if it's free agency? Maybe it's a trade, but we'll see. I think one thing with Tim Connolly is that he operates in the shadows, and you don't know what's coming until it comes. So we'll see what happens.
Jack's holding out on us. Clearly, he knows things. He's withholding information from his dear friends at the Minnesota basketball party. Really disgraceful. We'll get it out of you eventually. Let's talk Team USA after a very quick pause on the Minnesota basketball party. All right, it was indeed a very quick pause. Team USA, the Olympics coming up in just over 2 weeks. And the big quote that came out of press conferences this past week, Anthony Edwards believes that he is the number one option. I think he said some other unselfish things as well, but that's the one people have latched on to, that Ant believes he's the alpha on a team with Durant, with LeBron, with Steph, with Embiid, Tatum, Duke. Do you think that Anthony Edwards is atop the pecking order with Team USA?
I think Ant believes he's on the top of the pecking order for Team USA. I mean, looking around on that team, though, I mean, he's beat all of those guys. I mean, he knocked the Suns out of the playoffs. Durant and Booker both, theoretically under him on the pecking order. I think when it comes to Team USA, though, this team is so stacked, and I think it's going to be more of, you'd like to say it's like a healthy competition, but like it may be closer to that dream team where it's just Curry, LeBron, Durant all having fun together. And I think there's an equal chance that Ant just takes this team and this is his team to it is just the kind of last tour for an old band on the road.
Good take. Yeah, it's like if Durant takes the final shot, no one's bothered by that. If LeBron takes the final shot, if Curry takes the final shot, there's no headline there. If Ant takes the final shot with those guys on the floor, and whether he makes or misses, that's going to be the headline, right? Like Ant can really assert himself above some of these legacy players. But Jack, you teased this in our opening tip. What do you have on the Olympics?
Yeah, I just want, first of all, I want to give a big shout out to Chris Canty. I don't know if people saw that clip of him talking about Anthony Edwards and the Olympics, but that was incredible. And I feel the same way in a sense. Like
sum it up for us, because I didn't see it.
He basically, they asked him, what players would, do you think player X is better than Anthony Edwards? They went down the line, asked him every single player, can you say this player is definitively better than Anthony Edwards? And he was just like, no, I don't. And he just it just crescendoed into him just getting progressively more and more dug in his defensive end. It was a great clip. But no, I feel the same way. I think LeBron and Curry are the only two guys that I think definitively you'd probably want the ball in their hands at the end of a game, just because they have such a proven pedigree of of being able to make plays either for themselves or other people at the end of ball games. And and I think those two guys are probably the guys that strike the most fear in the hearts of defenses, right? In terms of being able to draw, being able to draw attention to themselves to create for other people. But I mean, you'd look around. I mean, Jason Tatum is one of the least efficient clutch players in the NBA right now. He beat the brakes off of Devin Booker and Kevin Durant in the playoffs. Is by far the best player on the floor in that series. Kawhi Leonard, are people even sure he's going to play? Is he going to pull a Jimmy Butler in the All-Star game and just say like, no, I'm just here, but I'm not going to play? Because if I was the Clippers, I sure wouldn't want Kawhi playing if he was hurt in the playoffs. And now you turn around a month and a half later and you go and you play Team USA. Tyrese Halliburton won't be on the floor at the end of the game. And Joel Embiid, like Steve Kerr's never played through a big man late in games with the Warriors. So I don't think he'd start now. I mean, and you're looking at Joel Embiid, he's not trying to hit a game-winning shot. He's trying to draw a game-winning foul. So I think when you're looking at Ant, you want a guy that's got that alpha dog in him, that leadership, and Ant certainly has that. He's one of the most magnetic people that you'll find. And I think Steve Kerr wants a perimeter centric player to have the ball in their hands at the end of a game, and I think it's going to be really important for Ant if he does have those opportunities to try to seize them, because I think what we've seen with Ant is that. He's been really hit and miss and up and down in clutch time, but just in terms of his blend of scoring and athleticism and ability to get downhill and create open shots for other people, it wouldn't surprise me if they choose to kind of leverage that athleticism and downhill, just play to be able to open up shots for guys like Steph or KD on the perimeter, or Devin Booker or something like that. So it would not surprise me one bit if Ant is the guy there.
Yeah, Ron, you talked about this at length in the Ron Johnson show yesterday, but I don't want to spoil what your take was. Give it to us. What do you think?
Well, the Duke, I mean, Sam, I felt like the Duke watched the show and just literally, I mean, we said the same exact thing. Like, literally, Sam, did we not say the same exact thing? Like,
pretty similar.
If you beat these guys, I am better than you. I don't care what you say. I want the shot. I beat you. You can't beat me. Give me the ball. Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, LeBron James. The only person that I could see taking a shot over him, and I believe he should steal, is going to be Steph Curry, because Steph Curry is an absolute, but Steph Curry and KD have had their issues with who takes the last shot, because we've seen the Draymond Green videos. So I think the pecking order becomes like Curry, KD, but then I think it goes to Ant. Like, and we know LeBron doesn't even want the last shot. Like, LeBron gave D'Lo last shots with the Lakers and Austin Reeves. Like, so LeBron's past the, like, I guarantee you there will be a game this year early on, because he already said, I want to be on the floor with Bronny. He's going to give Bronny the last shot. Like, he's going to tell his son to take the last shot because he doesn't want it, and then he's got to deal with the consequences if he doesn't make it. And everybody's gonna be like, "Dude, why did you take the shot? This is nepotism. I'm all for it, but golly, take the shot." And so Anthony Edwards, he is 3 in my opinion on that list.
Do you see Skip saying that Bronny has a better clutch gene than LeBron does?
Oh, come on.
Skip's like a hippo that has like 12 lions surrounding him, and he's trying to figure out how to survive. Like, Skip needs to just let it go. Like, he already got rid of Shannon. What's his name? Richard Sherman doesn't want to be on the show with him anymore. Like, Skip is realizing it was never about you. It was about your co-host, and he's ruined them. So, hey. But yeah, he's gonna say dumb stuff like that to go viral. Like, that's his point. And the funny thing is, LeBron's probably gonna feed into that. Like, oh yeah, Bronny is clutch. No, shut up, Skip. That's what Shannon Sharp wants to say.
Skip stooping to new lows, using LeBron's son as an argument against LeBron, which, I mean, incredibly bold take there. The anticlimactic part of this is that we might not have a single clutch time situation in these entire Olympics for Team USA, just because they're so loaded. I know Canada beat them in FIBA, but they didn't have a lot of these dudes on the team. USA on FanDuel -470 to win the gold medal. Canada next best chance at +1100. So, like, unless Nickeil Alexander-Walker goes off for 40, I don't know if Team USA has any clutch time situations. Maybe one, at most 2 games in this tournament will they, I think, really be tested in that way. So we may never find out. We might not find out at all. But I think it's going to be compelling to watch. And Jack, to be honest with you, I'm probably watching nervously the whole time about it. Like, I'm worried about injury, right? Like, Kawhi's worried about it, Embiid's worried about it. Those are injury-prone guys. But I think every Wolves fan is going to watch this for 2 reasons. One, to see if Ant asserts himself, and B, please stay healthy. I mean, that's a huge subplot in this.
Yeah, no doubt. And the fun thing is that Wolves fans will be able to watch because all these games are going to be on at watchable times. But yeah, I think the biggest thing for me watching Ant is just like how other guys on the team react to him and like where they think he's at, because they just had a straw poll, I think in the Athletic, of like where guys are. And it was like LeBron was definitively the best guy according to that straw poll. And then Steph and Ant were tied with the second most votes. So that's what I'm most keen on watching. I think the good news is that I don't think there's going to be all that much physical stress on his body. So maybe it's an ankle turn that we've seen a million times, but yeah, no, it was fun last season when you got to kind of watch Ant be the guy. But yeah, with Ant, it's never something I worry about. I'm honestly more concerned about it with Rudy playing and banging with big guys down low for France.
Yeah, Duke, we got Gobert with France. We've got Nickeil with Canada. Are there any other Wolves in this tournament?
No other Wolves.
Yeah.
I do cover the links, though, so I do want to give the W its shout out. They have BC, Bridget, over with Canada. Lana Smith is playing with Australia. And Nafisa Collier is working her way back from a plantar injury and expects to be a big part of Team USA. Third on FanDuel for MVP fee. So the Wolves do have Joe Ingles that did make the Australian team as kind of a last man rotation spot. So if you do want to, I think they're called the Boomers. So if you do want to watch some Boomer basketball, Joe Ingles might be hanging around over there. But I second what Jack was saying is just, I'm not really worried about Ant. He falls down, he claps his hands. He's going to probably have a couple times during this USA run where it looks like he got shot and then he just goes back to the locker room and comes back out. But Rudy, I mean, his first year in Minnesota, he got injured playing internationally. And he is at that stage of his career in his mid-30s where knees and feet and back start to become a problem. I think it will help that they have Victor Wembanyama on the team. Hopefully they're not doing a Vic-Rudy combo a ton, and Rudy's playing closer to 25, 28 minutes instead of the whole game. But Rudy's the one that I'm kind of watching of just hoping he can stay healthy.
Yeah, unquestionably there. By the way, Team USA women -1800 favorites to win that tournament. So, I mean, that is an absolute runaway if they can fulfill expectations. Also, no shade against South Sudan, but South Sudan qualified for the men's tournament. I mean, I'm wondering what that region looked like. I didn't associate them with basketball. All right. The summer league is starting this week. Duke is going. Jack's going to be watching every game intently, taking notes feverishly. We'll talk about that after I remind folks that you can check out Locked On Sports today for all the best in sports every day at the Locked On Podcast Network. Also, our Big 6 in 60 find on Fast TV apps, which collects the biggest sports stories of the day with our Locked On hosts. Make sure to check those out, our great national shows. All right, Duke, you're going to Vegas, Wolves Summer League. The roster's pretty compelling. Obviously, you've got the first-round picks, but some other cool names as well. Who specifically and what are you watching for closest?
I'm really excited to watch Jalen Clark. Coaching staff has been talking very highly about him, that he's worked on his three-point shot almost throughout the entire time he's been injured. Last year, fans probably noticed that he was sitting on the bench next to Mike Conley almost every game. And, he's really looking to kind of get back to that NCAA all defensive. I think he won Defensive Player of the Year his junior year with UCLA. He had a quote after practice if he wants to break the Summer League steals record. So he's definitely motivated and he's going to get a lot of opportunities. The other thing I'm really looking for is just Rob Dillingham. We know he's a scorer. We know he can get his own shot. We know he can make catch and shoot threes. I'm really interested to see how he runs in that Finch offense, where it's more of the, quote unquote, beautiful game, Golden State Warriors-esque style, where it's a lot of passing, a lot of flow, back cuts, coming off of pick and rolls, looking for the option to pass to the option. I just want to see him do it. I think that'll be really determinative of how many minutes he gets this season. And then they do have a couple Minnesota kids. Tyler Walls from Lakeville is kind of the most notable out of Wisconsin, that he's going to get some minutes. And it'll be cool to see a Lakeville graduate out there hooping at Summer League.
I was going to highlight Gabe Kalsher, who, Gopher fans remember how potent he was as a freshman from three, helped them win an NCAA tournament game, and then just inexplicably couldn't shoot threes the rest of his career. I mean, he was 41% as a freshman. Beautiful release. I mean, it's one of the most fundamentally pure shots you can imagine. And then he never exceeded 35% the rest of his career. So I'm intrigued by Kalsher just because he can defend, and in theory he can shoot threes, 3-and-D kind of guy, but he hasn't really shown the three part of it the last 4 years. Jack, what do you got?
By the way, for those wondering what I was showing on the camera, for those watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe on YouTube. You can see all the videos and the hijinks. I had Gabe Kalsher on my iPad. Like, I had his picture blown up. I had all his stats. So, Sam, you took my guy. I got to find another guy now.
I was going to say, Gabe Kalsher is a good friend of mine. I went to high school with Gabe. So I've watched Gabe very closely for 4 years. And obviously super proud of everything he's done, how hard he's worked to get here. So I'm super excited to see him be able to put on the Timberwolves jersey and play. So, I'll be rooting for him wherever he's at, above anybody else. But yeah, removing my guy.
Greg, you said you went to high school with him, or
yep, at De La Salle.
Oh, okay. I thought you're from Edina. I was about to say.
No, okay. He's from Edina. I'm not from Edina. Come on now. Come on, Rod. Jeez.
Thought you guys carpooled together from Edina.
No, hell no. I'm Minneapolis through and through.
Edina, you guys are fine people, by the way. Though, thank you for subscribing on YouTube. We love Edina. Without Edina, there would be no Mighty Ducks. Just remember that.
We love cake.
Oh man,
Who doesn't love cake?
but outside of him, I'm really intrigued to see, what Leonard Miller has done to improve his playmaking and defensive awareness and discipline from last season. I think those were a couple areas that didn't look super polished in Summer League last year or in Iowa for most of the season. He certainly has all the physical capabilities to do both of those things at a very high rate, at a very high level. But it's just a matter of seeing it, because I think Leonard Miller could be a really impactful player for the Timberwolves Probably not this year, but next year and certainly in the years to come. And then I'm also really, obviously, I think Rob Dillingham is just an electric factory with the ball in his hands. And I'm just so excited to be able to watch him make all these highlight plays and play a super fun brand of basketball, but do it as a Timberwolves player, not necessarily as a Kentucky player. Because I think he's got a ton of fans, and he's gonna be box office with Naz Reid and Anthony Edwards this season. So those are the two guys that I'm certainly most interested in watching.
Yeah, I stole Kalsher from Ron. Anyone else, Ron?
Yeah, no. So I do want to see. I mean, honestly, my number one is Rob Dillingham. Like, I want to see what they say about him. How does he play? You know, is he playing within the scheme? Is he a one-on-one guy? Because at the end of the day, and I forgot the quote. I don't know if it was Kyrie Irving or Jason Kidd, but they said a lot of people can play within certain schemes and certain offenses, but there are only a handful of guys that you can say, clear it out, one-on-one, let's see what you got. And I don't know if you guys remember the old KG clip and the way Kyrie actually talked about the USA team, where back in the day, it was always who can beat who the most one-on-one, because that's what we're going to need in this international game, the way it's structured. Well, we saw Kevin Garnett kind of take all those guys to the woodshed with his size and his ball handling. I want to see what Rob Dillingham does, because in the summer league, you get a lot of that. Like, if you watch some of the Bronny highlights, he had one-on-one opportunities. He just didn't make a lot of them, but he had a couple where, of course, they're going to show the highlights. We cross the guy over, does his little sidestep, guy falls, he knocks down a jumper. There's going to be a lot of opportunities like that for Rob Dillingham, because other teams in summer league, because I mean, Sam, you remember we had James Theus on the show. He's down there working for Junior NBA down in Vegas, and he talked about the one-on-one ability a lot of these guys, and the coaches want to see, are you a one-on-one on-ball defender? Because I can't always send help your way. And so that's what I want to see. I want to see both sides. I want to see Rob Dillingham guarding guys, and I want to see him, can he just absolutely do what he did at Kentucky, which is control the floor? And sorry, and I wasn't going to say this out loud, but I am interested in Tyler Wall. Like, I know he went to Wisconsin, but he's graduated, so we can move on now. But I do want to see Tyler Wall, because with his size, and I hate to say it, Wisconsin guys do play a smart level of basketball. Who knows what he's probably going to be a G League guy, but or can he make the G League? But, can he be a guy that works back at 6'9", and becomes just another piece on this team to be a 10th guy maybe in 2 or 3 years? I want to see what Tyler Wall can do.
Yep, that's a good point. Well, one of us is going to have a better week than the rest, because only one of us is going to Vegas, and it is the Duke. I'm watching
softball all week, so I don't know about that. I'm going to be in Missouri watching softball.
Vegas, softball in Missouri, pretty tight. So
a lot of humidity in Missouri.
Two places that are really not hot in the summer.
The Ozarks.
We're going to the Ozarks. Oh, yeah.
Look out for Marty Bird.
I know. That's what I'm looking for him. I'm trying to figure out where the money's hidden.
I did just want to say Kalsher did play last year, some spots stints with the Iowa Wolves. So
yeah, I saw that.
He at least knows the system. Sounds like he's going to get minutes. Deshaun Nix also has been brought up quite a bit in the practices of him getting a good shot at it, a good crack at it, whether he makes the roster or not.
Yeah, those would be sort of the so-called veterans on the roster. Duke, what's your poison? If you sneak away at 1 a.m., you go down to the casino floor, is it the slots? Is it baccarat, blackjack, craps? What are you playing?
Gambling days were behind me. Blackjack, if I have to choose. I'm going to be honest. I before the whole journalism thing, my wife and I would go to Vegas for about a long weekend to go watch all the shows. Cirque du Soleil, Michael Jackson's dope. The other Cirque shows are great. Blue Man Group, a lot of good food, a lot of good comedy down there. So even if you're not a gambler,
play the Monopoly slots. The Monopoly slots have always been good to me. They've always been good to me, because you get a bonus pool. And then when you get that bonus pool, it's like you if you can hit go or not. So it's either Monopoly or Jeopardy. I got to look up and see which one it was. It might be Jeopardy though. But one of them, you get that bonus pool. Oh no, it's The Price is Right. You get the bonus pool. So those, like Price is Right, Monopoly, Jeopardy, like those slots. Every year I go, I've always gotten lucky with those.
Guaranteed profit. I hear
Red 19, Duke. Red 19. Red 19 made me and my friends probably a collective $3,000 when we were in Vegas a couple years ago.
Oh my goodness! I mean, Instagram shows me there's some foolproof roulette strategies out there. Can't possibly lose. Please don't listen to us, Duke. Have a good time in Vegas.
You just stand in the lobby and say, "Who let the dogs out?"
Appreciate y'all.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you for joining us.
Anytime. It's always a blast coming out here.
You bet. Check out his work at Zone Coverage. Jack Borman from our postcast, formerly Canis Hoopus, and Ron Johnson, host of the Ron Johnson Show. I'm Sam Ekstrom. Thanks for watching and listening on the Locked On Wolves podcast feed. Talk to you next week.